Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tiki Goth Club. Today I am with my good friend Steven.
How's it going, folks?
And Steven, you have a podcast.
I do.
What's it called?
The Bonebat Show.
And what is the Bonebat Show about?
The Bonebat Show is a comedy and pop culture podcast based right here in Seattle that features independent music. So every episode, most episodes, we have a different independent artist and we play a few songs from them. Often we have an interview with the band and we'll talk about their music and try to promote things we love. That's kind of the point of the Bonebat Show.
Yeah, and it's with a buddy of yours that you've been friends with like forever.
Yeah. Gordon and I have been best friends since freshman year of high school.
Oh my God, time flies, right?
So this was, when we started, it was a way for us to connect because he lives in Central California. I live in Seattle area. So, we didn't talk to each other as much. And this was an opportunity for us to, once, twice a month, actually get together and spend some time chatting. And it invariably came about like, what media are you into? Are you into movies? Are you into music, books? What are you watching? What are you reading right now? And so we would talk about that, and that invariably became a big part of the show. Our love of music, our love of movies, our love of books, and talking about that.
And you're a big movie buff.
I am. Yeah, I love movies.
And you're a big horror movie buff.
I am. To the extent we created a film festival to show some of that stuff.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's the Bonebat Comedy of Horrors Film Festival. We finished our 10th year last October, and it was a good time. If you're into films like Shaun of the Dead or American Werewolf in London, you would be interested in the comedy of horrors. That's the sort of thing we're looking for, is that some movies that are both scary and funny. And I think we were the first film festival in the U.S. to actually be dedicated to that sort of thing.
Okay. Horror that's funny.
Yes.
So I'm guessing like Evil Dead 2 would be like the prime example?
Yeah, that's a great example. Or like I said, Shaun of the Dead. That's a good one. One of the best films that we've ever showed at our film festival is one that we were able to premiere in Seattle called Grabbers. Have you seen this movie? Grabbers is great.
What's it about?
So it's about these tentacled alien monsters that fall into the ocean outside of this little Irish island. And the denizens of the island start getting picked off one by one, and they realize the only way to kill the aliens is with alcohol. So they're trying to spend the night drunk so that the aliens won't get them. And it is so funny. It has a little romance. It has some good kills. A great movie. You've got to look up Grabbers.
Grabbers.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with my idea for this movie called Grabbers. I think it'd be funny if the killer literally went around with those like one of those old people grabbers.
I know what you mean. Yeah, and then get something off the top of the fridge.
I'm like here.
Grabber. Yeah.
I'm like here, and I like get your neck and Sure. I grew up on slasher films.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I just assumed that was horror movies. It just seemed like most of everything I watched
during the 80s
were slasher films, and that's when I went. I mean, like starting with Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then like all the other B movies that were like on videotape only, at least that I could find, like Pieces and Motel Hell, and the list goes on and on. It's funny that you say funny because it's like, it ain't like I never found any of those movies like scary or terrifying, but there's always been a certain level of like, I guess I have a dark sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, they're all funny. Sure. Like when someone gets their head cut off and you're like, ah, that's funny.
Yeah, sure.
But there's gothic horror.
Yes. I recognize that as being a form, certainly.
And I realize that too. Like, I remember, again, as a product as a teenager in the 80s, that there were these old movies.
Yeah.
Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I guess a lot of this stuff was the precursor of what would gothic horror be.
Actually, I would go back a little further to the German expressionist films of like F.W. Murnau, who did Nosferatu.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, and I can't recall the director, but The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yes.
So there were several films, black and white films, very steep angles, like misshapen angles,
yes,
to make you feel a little bit out of sorts when you're watching.
A lot of shadows, a lot of darkness.
A lot of shadows, in many ways probably precursors to film noir as well. And I would think of that as being like the essential early what you'd call Gothic horror.
What decades are we talking when those came out?
I think those were like the teens and 20s.
Teens and the 20s.
Yeah, so it was like around the time that filmmaking was just getting rolling, and there was a lot of technology. As I believe both of those films are silent. I want to say that haunted house movies kind of lend themselves well to that Gothic thing. So The Haunting, we all got to spend the night in the hotel, to whoever survives, they get the $1 million or whatever. Like that sort of thing. To me, that would be maybe a Gothic horror.
But not Amityville horror though, right?
That was quite a bit later. Well, what about though the Roger Corman, Vincent Price stuff? So The Fall of the House of Usher. Well, Pit and the Pendulum. There's a lot of Edgar. I think there was a ton of 4 or 5 Edgar Allan Poe films that he did.
Yeah, I guess Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft would probably be some of the godfathers of this too.
Yeah.
So you may be asking yourself, how can I join the Tiki Goth Club? Well, there is no membership. There are no fees. But I have shirts for sale. They're $20 a piece, $5 shipping and handling. If you're interested, go to my website, tikiwithray.com. There's a prompt that says buy a shirt. Follow that, and then that's how you can get your own. So,
do you think like what makes something horror Gothic is kind of like a location, a setting, a style, like of what they're wearing?
Maybe.
So if you're talking about like Victorian house, like when you're saying this, I'm thinking castles, Victorian homes with turrets.
Yeah.
A lot of Victorian clothing or nods to that.
I'm thinking that. I think also though maybe
a haunted house, but not
a romantic aspect to it. Like you mentioned maybe what would be a modern version of a Gothic horror. What about Crimson Peak from Guillermo del Toro? It came out a few years ago.
Okay.
To me, that's what I would consider to be Gothic horror. I think that'd be a good example of that. But it's also kind of a creepy house movie.
What about a mood? What about a theme or anything?
Sure. Well, I think like when we were talking about the German Expressionist stuff, like the mood and the theme is there, like darkness and certainly though style is part of it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of comes out too in when you talk about Gothic music. Like when you're talking about something like Bauhaus, you're talking about a specific thing. There's definitely a mood and a style and an atmospheric attitude that is conveyed through the music.
What's that mood? Would you say it's depression? Would you say it's sadness? Would you say it's horror?
Melancholy, certainly.
Melancholy. Yeah, I guess that would be the word, right?
Yeah.
Melancholy.
Yeah.
Is there any 80s horror movies that would have been considered like Gothic horror?
The Hunger?
The Hunger, yeah. Okay.
Or am I just thinking that because it has Bauhaus in it? I wonder if it isn't sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
We were talking off camera, but it was sort of a joke. Freddy Krueger. He's wearing like a red and green sweater and
like a slouch hat.
Yeah.
Is that what that kind of hat's called? I'm not sure.
I guess so. But say hypothetically, and this is a question for all the viewers out there too. Say hypothetically, Freddy Krueger was rolling around with a top hat and a ruffled shirt, where and a jacket where if Freddy Krueger looked like Dave Vanian from The Damned. Would the Friday the 13th series be considered Gothic?
That's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. But if the only thing that was different was how Freddy Krueger looked, would it be Gothic?
So you're kind of opening the door now to all these Gothic remakes of 80s horror films. So Jason is wearing a top hat along with his ski mask or his hockey mask. And,
I was gonna say, like, what did they wear? What did they wear when they played hockey back in?
Michael Myers is wearing a top hat. The only difference really is a top hat, and maybe like skinny puppy on the
he's wearing what do they call those things where it's like he's wearing those like the white socks that come up to your knees. And he's wearing buckled shoes.
Right. It's Gothic.
What's on with this? The Lost Boys. Would that be Gothic? Vampires?
Could be a modern Gothic. Yeah.
I don't know.
I wouldn't be offended if you said that to me.
I see, that's the thing. Or maybe what it all comes down to is maybe this whole gothic thing is it's what you make it.
Well, or if Aurelio Voltaire is involved,
Yeah.
then it's definitely gothic.
Yeah, there you go. I've become. I think this might be my favorite run now.
What is that?
El Dorado.
El Dorado?
This is a 12-year.
That's good stuff.
Do you have a favorite run?
No.
You know?
It's like having a favorite metal band, man. There's a lot of good ones out there.
You don't have a favorite metal band?
No.
You don't?
No. I've probably got 5 favorite metal bands.
Shit, the answer's obvious for me. It's Slayer.